Merci beaucoup, Luc, pour cette mise en perspective de l'automobile et de ses grands défis. And it's now my pleasure to welcome Mr. Gary Shapiro, President and CEO of the CTA, the Consumer Technology Association, which represents the US consumer technology industry. Owned and produced by the CTA, the CES has become the world gathering place for innovation. CES is the largest and most influential technology event on the planet. In the last 30 years, as the head of the CTA, Gary Shapiro has been at the forefront of game-changing technologies. He is considered as one of the leading personalities of the tech industry. And to celebrate this partnership between the tech industry and the automotive, Gary has even chosen to organize the 2000 edition of the Paris Unveiled CES on the 3rd of October on the Mondial Tech. So now please welcome Mr. Gary Shapiro. Hi, Gary. Welcome.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup. Je suis désolé, je ne parle pas français. So I will speak in English. We are a non-profit, non-governmental organization. We have over 2,000 corporate members, and we own and produce the CES, which is the world's largest innovation event, held every January in Las Vegas, the most recent edition. In 2018, we had over 4,000 exhibiting companies. We had over 5,000 people from France, including over 200 French exhibitors. And our focus is very simple. It's about innovation. We believe passionately that innovation will change the world and the human condition and make it better. And we're so happy to be here with Mondial Paris Auto because it is a great relationship, because the world of mobility is changing very rapidly. And it's changing because of technology and innovation. It's changing because of software and MEMS, micro electromechanical systems, these little systems on a chip which are sensing devices. And there's about over 20 in every smartphone, and now they're very, very inexpensive, and they're pervasive. And they're creating the Internet of Things, and the Internet of Things, part of which will be a future for mobility of cars that are connected. So what does it take to get from here to there? Because we started out with the auto and the technology industry. It used to be that automobiles, the major selling factor, at least in the United States, was how quickly you got to 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, how fast. It was all about horsepower and speed. And that changed 10, 20 years ago. People started wanting cars with great sound and then great video, and they looked for brand names like Sony and Bose and others. And then it changed again. So people wanted to replicate the environment that they have at home or in their office to put it in a car. They want internet connectivity. They want a navigational device. They want entertainment and video and great sound. They want an experience in their car, and that's the change that's occurring. But now we're in the middle of another change at the same time. And that change is the power we use, whether it's electric or something else. But also even bigger, I think, is the concept of shifting to a self-driving car. And that requires great cooperation, great technology between two great industries. And that's why we are pleased to be here to forge that linkage. Just like at CES, CES is now one of the largest auto shows in the world, one of the largest car shows. We have such a big presence of the entire ecosystem of the automobile community in Las Vegas. We have these events, a little event in Paris. We just had one in Amsterdam. We have one in Shanghai, which is very car-focused, and others. But the linkage between the two, because today, to succeed in any business, you must be able to cross the vertical line of the industry that you're in and forge partnerships with other industries. Car and tech and software and marketing and so many other industries must come together and converge. And that is a success, as I tell young people starting out in their career. You must be able to work with people from other industries, other professions, other cultures, and that is the value of business programs today to the extent they teach people how to do these things. And it's not only big companies to big companies and verticals, it's also big to small companies. That connection with small companies is very, very important in innovation. But one of the things we'll see with innovation in the next few years in a very, very rapidly time period, and I have a book that's coming out in January at CES where I talk about this. It's called Ninja Future. It's the second in the Ninja series. The last one was Ninja Innovation. But it talks about how we get to the next level with new technology and all the different things we want to do and have to do as a world to get to a point where people have great mobility, where we could deal with health and sickness and education and transportation and so many different areas of human endeavor, not only for entertainment, but for education and health and safety. And obviously, you've all heard it before that the self-driving car will save literally potentially 1 million lives a year and even more in terms of injury, and that will change the nature of healthcare by itself. And we have an obligation to go there for that reason alone, but also to empower people that are disabled, to empower people that are older. And this is a very strong constituency, at least in the United States, that are fighting for self-driving cars and the right laws. But what do we need to get there? What we need is data. What we need is the ability to capture a huge amount of information. And I want to talk very briefly about the different approaches the world is taking to that data. In China, the approach is that there is no privacy. Everything is fair game. And in a country of 1.4 billion people, which is more than twice the size of the United States and Europe put together in terms of population, all speaking one language, which makes it very easy, that's a very, very powerful tool where the government can take any data they want. Every telecommunications carrier must allow the government access, and they're capturing all this data and using it, and they're investing in self-driving cars in a very fast and aggressive, and I might say effective way. Now, Europe has taken a different approach to data. And data, to me, is the fuel for innovation for the next at least 2 decades. It's about data and the ability to access it. Europe has taken an approach where the individual's privacy is very, very important, more important than innovation, more important than moving forward in many different business contexts. And the individual is put first over the needs of the greater society and innovation. And that's a different approach. We've seen it from the right to be forgotten to GDPR. And the challenge I see with that in many situations coming up with self-driving vehicles, especially as we get there in level 3, we have a challenge. Because the challenge is, if someone gets into the car, how will the car be able to assess whether they are capable of driving or not? Whether they are sober or drunk? Whether they are asleep or awake? Whether they do not have the mental facility? Whether they are falling asleep? Unless there's some type of new special exception made so that individual can share information with the car. Now, I have testified before the United States Congress on this issue of self-driving and privacy. And it's an important one. And the politicians sitting up there would say, we own all our data, you may not have it. I said, that's not true. And they said, of course it's true. And I said, yes. What if you are driving in your car? Isn't it nice to know if the car in front of you has gone over a pothole? Or its windshield wipers are going and all of a sudden it's freezing and the outside temperature? Oh, yeah, that's not private information. You could have that. Okay, then you don't own all the data. But let's go further. What if the car in front of you has an accident with many other cars and there's a multi-car collision ahead? Do you want to know that? Of course we want to know that. That's important information to know. Okay, well, how about healthcare information? Oh, that's always private. No, it isn't. Of course it's not always private. What if there's a multi-car collision or outside of the transportation realm, a multiple disaster where many people are hurt? Wouldn't it be good for first responders to know what the person's vital signs are, whether they're alive or not, who should be attended to first so they can do triage? Oh, yes, that's important. So as you go through this, there's always a trade-off between privacy and what's good for the people, what's good for healthcare involved. And I'll tell you, just 2 nights ago, my wife was flying to Paris from Detroit, Michigan, where we live. And on the plane, there was an announcement, is there a doctor on board? There's an emergency. Well, it turns out my wife was the only doctor on board the plane. And she went up to a woman who was barely breathing. And the stewardess, the flight attendant, could not wake that woman up. And she was panicking. And she said, what do we do? And my wife woke up the person next to them and said, is this your wife? She said, no. So she was trying to figure out, and my wife said, with that lack of breathing and the inability to rouse her, it looks like she may be having a stroke. We have to turn, she's thinking, we have to turn the plane around and must go back to the mainland, even though they're over the ocean, or this woman can die. But she's thinking, before I do that, let me go through her pocketbook and see, maybe she took some drugs. And along the way, she tried the other guy across the aisle and woke him up and said, do you know that woman? She said, yes, that's my wife. I said, well, is she on medication? And the woman said, no. The man said, no, my wife is not on medication. So long story short, he said, but has she taken anything to sleep? He said, yes, she took 10 milligrams of Ambien. Did she have anything to drink? Well, she had a couple of cocktails. So with that information about her medical condition, my wife was able to figure out that this was Ambien and alcohol together, and she was able to add oxygen, not turn the plane around, and go. And the point of that story is that there's a trade-off we are facing all the time between privacy and data and safety. And when it comes to transportation, when it comes to the lives of people and information, we have the ability, we're on the cusp of it with technology and the automobile, to make a difference in people's lives. And I think we have to err on the ability to save people's lives and to use that information in a helpful way. And that's why in the United States, we're in the middle between China and Europe. We're having debates. But the debate that we're having as an industry is that privacy, of course, is important, but it depends upon the circumstance. And we should be reasonable. And if we want to move forward with self-driving cars, we have to recognize that information, including healthcare information, is something that's very valuable. I want to thank you very much. I want to wish you a great event, and I want to call Valerie Hoffenberg back on stage to escort me off the stage.
Thank you very much, Gary.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you the next few days.
Yes, thank you.